Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. A lot of things are happening right away, so I wanted to put it in one video, but it ended up being way too packed. So I'm gonna make this video here and I'm gonna make another one very, very soon. Today we're gonna be focusing about what's happening with this North Russian offensive, why it is not actually as threatening as some of the media articles would lead you to believe, and we're gonna look at what's gonna await us in the future. So on the 10th of May, we got notifications. It was right after I released a video about the possible offensive from the north. We saw Russians engage their newly formed group North formation that is commanded by the General Lapin. General Lapin being one of the butcher commanders of the Russian military. He is well known for just sending troops towards the Ukrainian positions with little to no concern about whether or not they will achieve some notable progress or not. So that's the first thing that we should be aware of. Then another part of preamble that I would like to kind of impose on you is that we do not know the Ukrainian defense plan. We do not know how Ukrainians planned to defend their territory. We do not know at what point they plan to stop the Russian invaders and so on. So, without that knowledge, we need to be very, very clear that all the time we are operating with imperfect information, and no one, unless they are part of the Ukrainian general staff, knows what the situation is. With that said, we can now clearly understand that certain mistakes were made in the preparation for this Russian offensive. This has been demonstrated by the removal from the local, essentially, defense commander and reinstalling a new defense commander, which has been received with much praise. And that's a problem of Ukrainian military that we should talk about at some point, but it's something that we will not have time to discuss in this video. Those commanders that are good commanders on paper, that were okay to maybe be in charge in this area where nothing was supposedly happening, and they were able to work through their ranks. But when it comes to actual work practice, then we saw these situations unfold. So the first thing that we need to dismiss is the big notion that is driven by the media that after the Russian invasions, they just kind of just walked in, that there was no defenses built, that Ukrainians just completely abandoned their positions and so on. And this is where the mistakes made that will go into this. The notion that there were no defenses made is both true and not true at the same time. What is the not true part? Well, the not true part is that there were defenses. And you don't have to believe me on my word when I'm saying there were defenses made in this area. You can just open, for example, an important tool that everyone has availability to access to, which is Google Maps. You can scroll down to some of the areas where Russian troops, let's take, for example, Krasne, which is like on this left axis. You can scroll in and then you're like, wait a second. What is this? Is this defensive positions? Are these trenches? And look at this, another one. What? And then another one, and it goes against the forest? What? And then you kind of look around and it's like, wait, there is more? So there are defenses made in the area. So, and this is not something that you need like a major degree on. You just need to not listen to the assholes on the internet that just yell for the sake of publicity saying, oh, there was no defensive positions made in the areas of Russian intrusion and Russians just walked in. That is just not true. Beyond that, the notion that these fortifications are not good enough is very clearly explained by two very important things. First one, as I already, well, three then things. The first one is that we do not know the Ukrainian defense plan. So maybe it was never intended to control these territories. It was always about when the Ukraine can use the reserves. But secondly, there was never intention to build massive fortification right on the border with Russia. You need control of the border and control deep inside of the Russian territory so that the equipment that you get towards the border just doesn't get targeted by the enemy artillery, drones, and etc. So all of the major fortifications that Ukraine has built in the area, and without even talking about these trenches that I just showed you just a second ago, the major fortifications that Ukraine has built in the area, they are way deeper. And now even the biggest critics of these defenses are now have to go back in a public space and say, wow, actually, there are defenses, it's just these first towns, they're kind of like, they're still very important for us. Like, and I understand that logic, because having any red presence, like any Russian presence on Ukrainian territory is sad. But we're trying to talk globally how to defend the country here, how to defend the bigger operations here, how to defend the points of interest. And unfortunately, sometimes this needs to be, we need to defend the battles that Ukraine can win. And that's the point. So these defense lines, I spent some good time. That's why one of the reasons why this video is coming out this late is because I actually took my time to go through Google Maps and actually found these fortifications, because the Google Maps actually has some of the pictures of them being built. So these fortifications are there. They're pretty good. Obviously, nothing was done to a complete perfection. There are errors and they're being discussed. What I don't like is when we take certain specific errors that are for specific areas or something that was exploited by the enemy and then just say, oh my God, everything is lost. Ukraine didn't build anything, like nothing happened at all. You need not to take this critical position. You need to very actively assess what is the scale of the error here. And this is something like you cannot think about these things in a black and white aspect. And then the third thing is where I want you actually to participate here with me. I want you, before I proceed now, to pause the video, then go into the comments section and write, what do you think means that Ukraine has significantly less resources than Russia? So Ukraine has a lot less resources than Russia, therefore they cannot. And then write what Ukraine cannot do. I want you then also read through the comments section and understand what does lack of resources mean and what it entails. I'm not going to explain it here, so this is going to be a collaborative effort. Because I repeat time and time again, and a lot of major news sources repeat time and time again, that Ukraine is lacking resources, that Ukraine does not have enough resources to wage this war, to defend against everything that Russia is throwing at them, and Russia is exploiting the multiple resources that it's having. And it seems that it just bounces off the deeper meaning and understanding. It's like, oh yeah, Ukraine has less resources, but they should still fight and achieve exactly what would be achieved if, for example, US that would fight against some local peasants. Sometimes it just baffles my mind. So please do this exercise, read it through, and try to reflect about what does the lack of resources mean for Ukraine. Finally, what is the expectation? Well, Russia has organized about 50,000 big group in this area. In our recent stream, we talked very extensively, and I'm going to leave a link in the description to the stream if you want to watch it, about what it entails. But the point that I want to underscore is that firstly, there are two kind of big targets that are being discussed in the media, realistic ones. Like, we're not talking about something completely unrealistic, such as Russia just going towards the south and then just, like crushing Ukrainian defenses in Kupiansk, then collapsing the front line, yada yada, taking the whole Kharkiv region, taking the whole Donbass. Like, we're not trying to describe dream scenario here. 50,000 troops is what Russia pretty much lost almost 50,000. It was somewhere between 35 to 45,000 that Russia lost in attack for Avdiivka. Avdiivka is the city of population of 30,000. It's a very, very small city. The Kharkiv north area is a lot more urbanized. There is a lot more infrastructure. Plus, there is a lot of more forests in this area. So while it gives certain advantages to the attacker, such as when the enemy attacks, they can use something that is called, and importance here, the element of surprise. So while there was known that there is a grouping that is being formed, a lot of people for some reason assume that this grouping of forces is like in a computer game where there's like 50,000 one unit, and that unit kind of just goes over the border. And that is the question. I was like, why don't you just HIMARS this unit? No, it's hundreds of people that go through these heavily forested areas, potentially at night, potentially in concealment, to try to prepare an incursion in secrecy. Now, there was known that this incursion will happen into Ukrainian territory, but it was not completely known in what areas. Maybe Russia found out these plans and then they changed their plans. There is a lot of things that we don't know, so we can never ever explain things that there is precisely what was going to happen. There's a lot more moving parts in this area. So for major offensives, such as potentially this could be, right now it's unclear. Right now, I know there's a lot of analysts that are saying that this is potentially just an incursion. And it's an incursion because there is very little that Russia can achieve in this area. Firstly, the city of Kharkiv is the second biggest city in Ukraine. It's a population of 1.5 million. If Russia indeed brought 50,000 troops to this area, and note, not all of the 50,000 troops are battle-capable troops. A lot of them are support units, etc. So even if Russia has these 50,000 troops, the 1.5 million people living in Kharkiv, if Russia comes, well, I wouldn't say that can just beat them up with stones, but you understand that Russia needs a lot more to even consider threatening this city, right? If Russia lost about 35, 40,000 to take a city of 30,000, and that was like, wow, Russia, amazing victory, then taking a city of 1.5 million is definitely cannot be achieved by the population of, by the group of 50,000. Now, second thing is to take this Kharkiv region, like this one, this part over here. That is an interesting idea. The problem for Russia is firstly, there are major defenses that have been built in the area. So far, Russia, with all their forces, have only intruded into the border region, and they have not even achieved even a slight success. And this goes firstly against a lot of the major offensive doctrines. These major offensive doctrines dictate that at the start of the offensive, the enemy needs to be surprised, and you need to kind of try to penetrate the attack in depth, the territory in depth. That penetration didn't happen. I know a lot of people get really, really sad about, let's try to measure, about 6.5 kilometers deep loss of Ukrainian territory. But let's look at the big picture. And in big picture, so far, nothing of the terrible has happened. Russia is yet to reach major areas here. And if we're talking about, well, then Russia just will continue advancing and they will reach Kupiansk. Well, from the area where Russia is right now to Kupiansk is about 80 kilometers. And that's like in a straight line. I'm not even talking about. We're not in 2022 when Russians just swept through the unprotected land, where there was no units here to defend people, where Ukraine couldn't send resources to defend the area. Now that the surprise factor is gone, and we hear this from the local representatives or from the local commanders, where they state, let's see, where is it? This one, yeah. So here, people like Ukrainian defenders in Vovchansk are now reporting, sending videos saying that the situation is hard, but we're fighting, it's all under control, it's good. So the defenses are going. Does it mean that they will hold Vovchansk? No, Russia will continue advancing because resources, read it in the comments section. But the idea that Russia can just easily march to these 80 kilometers, firstly, as I said, defended, a lot more urbanized and a lot more densely populated area than in Donbass, a lot more heavily forested, so there can be a lot more traps and partisan activity, and Ukraine can utilize quality army to defeat bigger quantity armies. So there is a lot more trouble for Russia, arguably, to go from this 80 kilometers to if we go to the Donbass front line, where they had a major breakthrough of Ocheretine, and they want to reach the major Ukrainian defense center at Pokrovsk, which is only 29 kilometers from the Russian positions. Those 29 kilometers are incredibly hard for Russians to reach. It's literally they're struggling. They've had to basically spend tens of thousands of men and hundreds, if not tens of thousands of equipment just to try to get to here where they are right now. Like, let's take, for example, Avdiivka, and this was like half a year. 22 kilometers they were able to go from Avdiivka to where they are in Ocheretine for over half a year. And again, in a lot of analyst perspectives, this area over here for Russia is easier to advance through and capture than it would be here. So the point that I'm making, and I want to hammer it down, that 50,000 is nothing. The only thing that Russia can kind of do is try to get Ukraine to overreact, to send the forces, to try to extend Ukrainian capacity to defend other regions. And maybe then Russia will have an advantage, because right now Ukraine has been struggling for resources. Read what Ukraine cannot do with resources. So as Ukraine will receive the Western help, as Ukraine will receive more resources that they were supposed to be there half a year, this Russian aggression and other parts of the frontline Russian aggression will go to naught. Russia does not have the resources for major breakthroughs like in 2022. All of the panic settling and panic discussions are there because people still cannot get over that the Russian military is not the second strongest army in the world. They still think that somewhere in deep pockets, Russia has some kind of trump card that they will just pull out of there somewhere, and they will then suddenly collapse the Ukrainian army. Ukrainians will stop resisting the Russians, and then suddenly Russians will completely roll over Ukrainians. It's not gonna happen. If Russia wants to take it, they do have the advantage of resources. In a resource warfare, the side with advantage will be advancing. The side that doesn't have the advantage will not be advancing. Plus all of the other things that we discussed. But expecting that Russians are just gonna waltz through and just capture Kharkiv or anything else that media suggests is a load of crap. Are there problems on the front lines? Yes. Is it hard? Is it painful for Ukrainian defenders to defend it? Yes. Is it painful and sad to see Ukrainian villages and smaller cities being captured by the Russian occupiers? Absolutely. But the resources are coming in, and we already hear, for example, from Mette Frederiksen over here, where she says that the F-16 planes are on the way and will be in Ukraine within a month. Now, you can argue whether or not it's good or bad that we get this description set out so Russia knows when the planes are coming. But God damn, it's now about time to start supporting Ukraine more, not less, if we want Ukraine to succeed. Stop panicking. Everything is fine. Ukraine is defending. There are operational troubles, some with defenses built, some so on, but Ukrainians are doing what they can. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces. And if you want to support Ukrainian armed forces, we have a perfect opportunity. We did many campaigns with NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade. I want to give a shout out first and foremost to the Jake Bros campaign. I think you should consider contributing to the Jake Bros campaign, which is pretty impressive. Like, just for the good cause. I know that all of these trucks that Jake is going to get are going to be absolutely incredible to support Ukrainian armed forces. But we have started our own campaign as well. We want to get something very, very special. We're finally working directly with units, with the 446th separate pilot battalion of the 143rd Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. We actually have direct contact. It is because the person, Sanat Dimel, who also worked with Sukhomimos before, he reached out and said, hey, can we do a campaign for this Baba Yaga? Now, Baba Yaga, if you don't know, I'm going to put a video over here, is a huge night drone that carries like 4 big 80mm mines that goes in the night and hunts Russian armor and Russian troops. It's now been absolutely nemesis for the Russians. They are scared about it. And we are going to provide one of them specifically to this unit. So I think it's a great effort. So contribute to the Jake Bros campaign if you have some to spare to contribute to this campaign. All the help helps. Let's do it together. I love you all. Trust in the Ukrainian armed forces. Trust in Ukraine. Slava Ukraini. I love you guys. And I'll see you next time.